Alright, what's going on, guys? It's CBrev back finally with a new tier list for you guys. Today is December 31st of 2021. Posting this right on time, right at the date that I said I would. I appreciate you guys being flexible with me on this one. If you guys are new to my stuff, my Twitch is CBrev, my Twitter's at CBrevMLB, and if you're seeing this somewhere other than YouTube, my YouTube is CBrev. So it's the last day of 2021. Let's get our usual disclaimers out of the way. And first of all, I just want to say to you guys, if you guys are watching me on this last day of the year or moving into 2022, thank you so much. It's a blessing to have the audience that I have, and the fact that you guys watch these videos that I make is amazing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing it. I very much appreciate the support that you guys have shown me throughout the years, and this year specifically. Even better than the ones before it. So thank you guys. As far as the tier list disclaimers that we usually say in the beginning, these are just my opinions. They are subjective. This is more of just to provide you with a framework of who I think is the best or who I think is good and bad, especially because we are in the end game now. There's so many options in the game. If you're doing well with a guy, stick with him. If you're doing bad with a guy, go ahead and get rid of him. Tons and tons of options. So find what works for you and stick with it. And then finally, for disclaimers, I do want to say that I think this is going to be the last tier list that I make for MLB The Show 21. In terms of card power, we've basically gotten every in-game card that we're going to get. We aren't really missing a ton of things except for like maybe some crazy throwback cards from years past. So in general, the best cards that are going to come are out now. So that being said, I don't think I'm going to do another one of these for MLB The Show 21. Obviously, when MLB The Show 22 comes out, we'll be right back at it. Week 1, posting a tier list. So look forward to that. But it's been a good year. I really enjoyed the game this year. And it's kind of sad to be posting this last tier list. But I hope it helps you guys out. Helps you make some decisions with these insane cards that we have in the game now. So that being said, let's jump right into it with what I think is maybe the most ambiguous position in the game now, which is catcher. From talking to people, it seems like people really have the most trouble finding like their catcher, especially now. For me, that guy is Jimmy Fox. The last 2 years, we've gotten a Jimmy Fox card, in-game card with a catcher secondary, and he's just that dude for me. Insane bat. And his defense this year, for me, hasn't even been bad. I've heard people say Fox's defense has been bad, but I've had almost no experience with that. I'm throwing sliders in the dirt. He's blocking them. People are taking off with Kenny Lofton. I'm throwing them out. Maybe I'm just getting lucky, but I don't even really see a downside to using Fox at catcher, to be honest. And the bat is just unlike anything else you'll get from the position. Considering his swing and attributes and everything. So Fox is my guy. He's finally dethroning Schwarber, who was number 1 for a very long time for catcher for me. Schwarber's now in number 2. Piazza at number 3. The new Salvador Perez at number 4, who I like a lot. And then Rutschman number 5. Did forget to mention what the color coding means, so let's knock that out really quick. Greene is a new guy, a card that was not in the game on the last tier list when I made it, so this is a new card in the game. And then blue is a guy in his secondary position, and then you may see yellow or gray. That's just gold and silver, but not too many of those on this list. Also, for each position, we're doing 10 for tier 1A, 1B, and 1C, so 30 on the first page, and then each position is only a top 50 for me. So if you see a guy that's not listed, it's because I don't think he's top 50 in the game, which again, you're more than welcome to disagree, but it's hard enough to rank all these cards in the game. You know, some guys have to get left out. 2 exceptions to that are starting pitching and outfield, who have 60 instead of 50 because there's more of them and they're harder to rank. Anyway, we got newcomers Garver and Alvarez in tier 1C there. And then here's some more catcher options if you're so inclined. Let's move on to a more fun position, first base. So I do have Ruth and Gehrig 1 and 2, but I will be very honest with you guys. Freddie Freeman is very close to number 1 for me. I just couldn't do it on this list, but it's a lot closer than you'd think. A lot of these 99 finest cards that we got from Team Affinity, if you see them ranked extremely highly on my list, it probably has something to do with their quirks. A guy that's rated highly for me that you may not think, right away should be rated that high. it's probably because they have a ton of quirks. So there are active quirks that, finest cards get that legends don't get. The best two, in my opinion, being Dead Red and Breaking Ball Hitter, because they're active most often, and they just completely change a card. The exit velos and the launch angles you can get from a card with active quirks is just nothing like you can get from a card without it. I'm kind of addicted to them now. And I actually did a video last year. It is from MLB The Show 20, but that video proves that you can actually go above 125 for a hitting stat in-game if you have your quirks active. So that's pretty crazy. All that being said, active quirks are maybe the strongest part of a card that exists, besides just, obviously having good attributes. But because we're in the in-game now and almost every option has good attributes, the cards that have active quirks really stand out from the cards that don't, especially the ones that have tons of them, like Freeman, Turner. There's more. Soto has almost every one of them. All these cards just play so different. They're so good because of that. So Freeman's very close to #1 first baseman for me. I just wanted to put that out there, but I do have Ruth and Gehrig first and second. Then we have Freeman, then Fox in fourth, Devers, Pujols in sixth, Frank Thomas, Todd Helton, Willie Mays, and Vlad Jr. rounding out first base, Tier 1A there. Then we got Austin Riley, the new Manny Machado from last year's finest. Love that card a lot. He's got active quirks as well. I just don't think he's top 10. Then we got Muncy, bottom of Tier 1B there. And then Tier 1C, we got newcomers Schwindel, Wisdom, and Moncada. And here's the bottom 20 for first base. Tons of options. First base is one of the deepest positions in the game, so it's entirely possible that I left a guy out here that you do amazing with. To each their own, I suppose. Same with third base and outfield. Just so deep in terms of position utility. Let's move on to a more shallow position. And in the middle infield specifically, I think it's more clear-cut of who the best card is. So just to say it, I think the best second baseman in the game now is clearly 99 Trey Turner, and I think the best shortstop in the game now is clearly Fernando Tatis Jr. So that's a little bit easier decision making for me in my middle infield. 99 finest Trey Turner might be the best card in the entire game. He's another guy that has almost every single active quirk. At second base, parallel 1, which takes no effort to do at all. He's going to have diamond defense there. He's literally Mookie Betts with 99 speed. Gets diamond defense at parallel 1 and has almost every active quirk. The card is just, can't even describe how good that card is. I'm sure you guys know, but probably the best card in the game. And I do recommend playing him at second base. 1, because it's the most shallow position, and 2, because it's the only position where he can actually get to diamond defense. So good stuff there. I do have Tatis second, followed by Mookie Betts, and then Ketel Marte in fourth, the best second baseman. That's not Turner or Tatis or Betts. Really, really good card there. The best free second baseman that's not Tatis, too, if you're playing Tatis at shortstop. So good stuff. We got Kike Hernandez in fifth there. We got Simeon rounding out at the bottom of Tier 1A there. And then at the top of Tier 1B, I want to talk about Brandon Crawford. The same can apply to Corey Seager as well, who's in Tier 1A. But Brandon Crawford, Corey Seager, they're going to be rated lower at second base and shortstop than they are at third base, and it's because of their defense. Not that their defense is bad, especially Crawford. His defense is really good, but it's their speed. So speed's a lot more important in determining range, like what balls you can and can't get to for middle infielders on this game, as opposed to third base where you're kind of just a statue reacting. A lot of the crazy plays you'll make at third are one-step dives where speed is basically irrelevant. So I think those cards that are slow with good defense or just slow with good bats are much better at third base than second base and shortstop. So that's why Crawford and Seager are lower than those and higher at third base. So I just wanted to put that out there. Anyway, Tier 1B, after that we got Muncy, Polanco, Bichette, and Correa. And then we got Lau and Moncada join in Tier 1C there. And then we got the bottom 20 here if you're so inclined. Those guys in Tier 4 are, really just goes to show how shallow this position gets, even all the way down at the bottom. I don't think I've seen anybody using those cards that are in Tier 4 for months. So if I run into you and you're using them, I'll be surprised. Still decent cards, so. All right, let's move on to third base, which is the deepest position in the game probably besides outfield. Third base and outfield were the hardest slides for me to do this time around. And if you notice, the one thing that jumps right off the page immediately is that I now have Chipper Jones in 7th, which is crazy to think about. But I really just truly feel that the other 6 are better than him as a third baseman right now. Obviously, we got Trey and Tatis at the top there. And the second most surprising thing about this slide is that I have Brandon Crawford third. So if you if you're using Turner at second and Tatis at shortstop, the best God Squad third baseman for you is Crawford, which is just crazy to think about. You guys know I love to talk about, kind of one card that I think is the most slept on in the game. Every one of these tier lists, I spent a lot of time talking about Garrett Hampson in a tier list before. Brandon Crawford is that guy for me, especially as a third baseman. He has everything you could ever want. He's left-handed, better splits versus righties. His splits versus lefties aren't even that bad. Amazing swing. He's going to have diamond defense at third base. He is slow, but it's less relevant there. And he's got tons of active quirks. So Brandon Crawford, for me, probably the most slept-on card in the entire game. I don't even see many people even having him on their bench, which is just crazy to think about because the card is next level for me. Like I said, I think he's the best third baseman in the game if you're not using Turner or Tatis there. In 4th, we have Freeman. 5th, Jimmy Fox. 6th, Corey Seager. And then finally, Chipper Jones. And rounding out Tier 1A, we got Devers, Pujols, and Kike Hernandez. What's funny about the top 5 of third baseman, too, is there's a slide where all 5 of them are actually on the field at the same time. It's just Crawford's the only one playing third base. So that just goes to show you how many good cards, how many in-game cards actually have a third base secondary this year and why the position is so deep. Tier 1B, we got Austin Riley and Manny Machado there. Again, love Manny, just can't put him, higher than that. Muncy, Correa, and Simeon at the bottom there. And then in 1C, we got Polanco, Bichette, Wisdom, and Moncada. Gary Sheffield as the 30th best third baseman is insane. It just goes to show how deep this position is. Here's the final 20 for you guys, if you're so inclined. And then let's go ahead and move on to shortstop, who, as I said earlier, I think the clear-cut best shortstop is Fernando Tatis Jr. there. I actually do have them ahead of Trey. It's kind of, not really relevant to talk about, but the reason he's higher than Trey at shortstop is arm strength and the fact that he actually has diamond defense where Trey doesn't. Anyway, besides them, we got Hannes in 3rd still, and we got Ketel Marte in 4th. In 5th, we have Wander Franco, who is a card that's kind of, been forgotten by this point in the year, kind of left by the wayside. But as a pure shortstop, still a top 5 option for me. You get him diamond defense at parallel 3, switch hitter, better versus righties. What else could you ask for there? Rounding out Tier 1A, we got Chipper, Kike, Chris Taylor, Lindor, and Corey Seager. And then again, Brandon Crawford dropping down to Tier 1B there. Behind old Trey Turner, and then we got Machado, Correa, Bichette, Simeon, and Polanco there. No newcomers in Tier 1C for shortstop. And then we've got Adames, Irvin, Ripken, and India as newcomers on this secondary slide. Sorry, my voice is starting to go a little bit. Hopefully I make it through this one all the way. This is my second attempt at this. I forgot to hit record the first time through, so we're a little bit sad, but we'll get through it. Anyway, second hardest position for me to do for this list was outfield. And this is how the outfield rankings are looking for me. So my top 3 is Mantle, Trout, Griffey. However, if you were to come to me and say that any of Soto, Reynolds, and Tucker, the 3 behind them, are top 3, I wouldn't argue with you at all. When I first sat down to make this list, I actually had Soto number 2 ahead of Trout. But as I thought about it more, I just couldn't rank it like that just because Trout is a 5-tool player and Soto kind of isn't all the way there with his speed. But again, we're talking about cards with active quirks versus cards without active quirks. So, Mantle, Trout, and Griffey, none of them have active quirks, whereas Soto and Tucker do. Reynolds actually doesn't have that many, but card still plays amazing. Anyway, Soto and Tucker could easily be higher. But for me, the top 3 is Mantle, Trout, and Griffey Jr. Obviously, after that, we got Soto, Reynolds, Tucker, and then Mays, Finest, Bryce Harper, Babe Ruth, and Ketel Marte. You guys can see I put Trey Turner and Tatis there at the bottom in pink. They absolutely have to be mentioned as some of the best outfielders in the game. However, because outfield is so deep and middle infield is so much more shallow than outfield, I think you're really making a mistake playing either of those cards in the outfield at this point in the year. So I wanted to put them there so you guys knew I didn't forget about them, but they're in pink because they're kind of off in their own island where, you know, they're amazing outfielders, but they probably shouldn't be used as such. Top of Tier 1B now, we got Mookie Betts, Vlad Sr., Rosario, O'Neill, Hank Aaron, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, and then newcomers Brandon Nimmo and Starling Marte. And then at the top of Tier 1C, who almost made it into Tier 1B, is Albert Pujols, which kind of surprised me when I looked at the card. He's actually not bad defensively in the outfield. He's got gold defense and decent speed. So with the card, with the hitting stats that he has, he actually plays better defense than I thought he would. So not a card you would really think of as an outfielder, but definitely, you know, up there in the top 30. And then we got Charlie Blackmon there as well. A little bit easier this year to get away with poor defense in the outfield. So guys like Blackmon, who just have amazing swings and, you know, are great hitters, you know, a lot easier to put them in the top 30. Here's the bottom 30 here. You can see just how deep outfield is. We got Hannes at 31, Hampson at 33. Both of those cards are crazy good. Newcomers, we got Wisdom and Avisail Garcia, another really underrated card in my opinion. And then in Tier 3 for outfield, we got Riley, Lau, Winker, and the new Kenny Lofton. And then rounding out the bottom of Tier 4 there, we've got Finest JD Martinez. So hopefully that helped you guys with your outfield. That was very, very difficult to rank just because there's so many of them, and so many of them are good. All right, moving on to starting pitching, moving away from position players into pitchers. The best, finest pitcher in the game, in my opinion, is, drum roll, not Corbin Burnes. It is actually Walker Buehler, and I actually have Corbin Burnes kind of low, so we'll spend some time talking about that. But in terms of the top 5 God Squad rotation, it hasn't changed at all. I don't think any of the new finest cards crack the top there. You can see the top 6 is unchanged: Ohtani, Verlander, Kluber, Ryan, Arrieta, and DeGrom, with the first new card coming in 7th being Walker Buehler. So let's talk about Walker Buehler, Charlie Morton, and Corbin Burnes, since I know those are the 3 you guys are going to have the most questions about. So let's start actually with Corbin Burnes, who has been very underwhelming for me. I actually don't even think he's that good of a card. He's just a guy I don't really trust that often. He's been getting blown up a lot. I think he's kind of easy to read, even with the outlier. I don't know what it is, man. I just think he's really easy to get into a predictable sequence with as well. Like, he's really a card that you have to be unpredictable with to have success. If you're going out there and if you're just spamming arm side sinkers and glove side cutters the whole game with Corbin Burnes, you are going to get destroyed against a good player. So you really have to be cute with the changeups and the curveballs. I don't know. The card just isn't nearly as good as I was hoping he would be, and so that's why he's in the middle of Tier 1B. On the flip side, Walker Buehler has been way better than I was expecting, and easily, in my opinion, the best, finest pitcher. What happened is they actually finally gave him a sinker instead of a two-seamer this year, which completely changed the card, in my opinion, on top of the fact that he's got amazing per nines. Because of his release point being way over the top, a sinker is so strong, and Tuttle makes his tunnel so much better this year than in years past, especially because he's a guy that never gets a changeup. And so the sinker has finally given him a pitch that he can actually get lefties out with, or at least keep lefties honest on the outside third. The sinker has completely changed the card. I think the card's amazing. The cutter slider dynamic is really strong with Walker Buehler as well. Can't say enough how much I like that card. That being said, he's not top 5 for me. And then rounding out Tier 1A, we actually have Charlie Morton as well. Kind of the same story as Buehler. You know, great sinker-cutter dynamic. He's got 7-mile-an-hour difference between sinker and cutter, which is almost ideal. He's got also a primary slurve, which is amazing and very unique for the card. And then Charlie Morton also has max break on every single pitch except his cutter, which is pretty crazy. The tunneling you can do with Buehler and Morton is just out of this world, and it's way better than the tunneling you can do with Corbin Burnes, which is saying a lot because, you know, I was really expecting Burnes to be top 5 before he came out, but he's just kind of disappointed. Anyway, in Tier 1B, we got Wheeler and Alcantara there sitting there too. They're basically DeGrom without outlier. So obviously good, but they just don't throw their four-seamer as hard. And then a lot of oldies there at the bottom of Tier 1B and top of Tier 1C. And we got Marcus Stroman joining the fray there, rounding out the top 30. Here's the bottom 30. You know, you really start to see a big drop-off, in my opinion, towards like the middle of Tier 2 and downwards. Although, again, pitching is probably the most subjective thing in this game. So you may have success with a guy that I think is not very good. It depends on a lot of factors, a lot of them including your opponent's skill level. So, you know, take everything with a grain of salt. But Tier 2, we got Grayson Rodriguez, Frankie Montas, Garrett Cole, and Brandon Woodruff joining the fray. Tier 3, we got Bieber at the bottom there. And then Tier 4 has Dylan Cease, Catfish Hunter, Big Stam, and John Means rounding it out. So moving on to the bullpen now, we got right-handed relievers. We got Raisel Iglesias cracking the top 5, which is another card that I haven't really seen many people talking about. I've seen a lot of people using him, but nobody's really like praised him as an amazing card, at least from what I've seen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. His delivery and his arm angle is so disgusting with the pitches that he throws. It's a 3/4 delivery, but it's like sweeping. Like he comes way off to the side, and it just makes his tunnel so insane with his sinker, slider, and changeup dynamic. Sinker changeup guy. That's a quote from the announcers if you missed the joke. But insane card. Definitely top 5 for me. So he's top 5 listed. A guy you may see that's lower than expected is Emmanuel Clase. Outlier cutter is very unique. I was interested to see how that card would do, but my overall consensus is that he's not very good. The problem with Clase is if they can actually catch up to the heat, you're kind of in trouble because he doesn't have enough speed differential. I have had several situations where I know for a fact my opponent is sitting cutter and swinging cutter, and I'll throw a slider and they'll just foul it off because the slider is only like 8 to 10 miles an hour slower, and that's as far down as you can go with Clase, right? Because he only throws cutter, four-seam slider. So you kind of just get in situations where you just can't get people out because even if they guess wrong, they're still fouling balls off. So kind of disappointed with that card. Don't think he's very good. We do have Jonathan Loaizaga at the bottom of Tier 1A there, cracking the top 10. Pretty solid card. Good pitches, outlier, all that good stuff. And then we got Garrett Whitlock in Tier 1C there. Here's the bottom 20 for right-handed bullpen arms, but really you should be sticking to the top 30 for this specifically, I think, in my opinion. All right, lefties, we only had one new card, but it's a good one. Finest Aaron Loop, I actually have all the way up in second, just behind Chapman. I actually have him ahead of Billy Wagner. Aaron Loop is essential to your bullpen. I could not imagine having a bullpen now without Aaron Loop in it. The reason is he's a left-handed reliever that is wildly different than any other pitcher that you're going to see from the left side out of the bullpen, right? If you look at Chapman, Wagner, those are outlier slider guys. Miller's a slider guy, more slider changeup. Matzik, you know, they're all kind of the same type of pitcher, aside from Loop, who is just pure finesse, sinker cutter, really deceptive arm angle, sinker cutter slurve actually. Really, really good card. I couldn't quite put him number 1 ahead of Chapman just because I think Chapman is so nasty, but it's close. Aaron Loop is absolutely essential to your bullpen at this point in the year, and he's so much different than the other guys and a lot of fun to use. So, that being said, let's move on to what you guys have told me is the most fun part of the video. These are going to be the team builds. So, as always, we're going to do 3 of these. The first one is the best team possible. If you have no big collections, you don't have any World Series or BR rewards, or just in general cards that cost 1 million stubs. So the 1 mil disclaimer there is mostly just to eliminate guys like Mike Trout and Trey Turner. This is my best attempt at a budget squad. So take that what you will. The most expensive card on this slide is Nolan Ryan, who's creeping back up in price. So if you don't want to spend the money for him, I totally understand. You can go ahead and move on to Felix, I think is the next highest rated guy there. But anyway, this is kind of like the budget slide. We're going to do best team possible if you have access to every card. And then the last slide is the best team possible if you never spent a single stub. So a more extreme budget. But anyway, I've also ordered the lineup, how I would order it, to help you guys set it as well. And then the green is a guy that's new to the lineup or rotation or bench or bullpen. And the yellow is the guy he's replacing from the last tier list. So for this lineup, We're leading off Mickey Mantle in center field. Then we got Juan Soto in right field, who gets diamond defense at parallel 2. Really, really strong. He's replacing Willie Mays. Tatis at shortstop, then Freddie Freeman at first. Brian Reynolds in left field. Brandon Crawford at third base. Ketel Marte at second. And then Schwarber rounding out the lineup in eighth, playing catcher. On the bench, we got Frank Thomas, and Mike Piazza's there to protect against Kyle Schwarber. We don't really want to get into a late game situation, game on the line, and we have to hit left on left with Schwarber. So Piazza's there for that protection. We also have a third righty in Kike Hernandez on the bench, who's an amazing bench bat, plays tons of positions, and also has the pinch hitter quirk, which boosts his attributes when he pinch hits. Super strong. And then for our left-handed outfielder, we have 99 finest Bryce Harper, max first righties with quirks. And then for our lefty, we have Corey Seager. Our infield lefty is Corey Seager there. In the rotation, we have Nolan Ryan, Jacob deGrom, Walker Buehler's replacing Fernando Valenzuela. Logan Webb stays from last time, and then we've got Charlie Morton replacing Felix Hernandez. In the bullpen, and you'll see this is true throughout all 3 team build slides, I've actually moved away from 5 righties, 3 lefties, and back to 4 righties, 4 lefties in my bullpen. The reason being, with the way people's lineups are structured now, there's a lot more situations where it's actually good to bring in a lefty from the pen. A lot of people are running Trout, who is worse against lefties, and they're kind of putting him sandwiched between lefties. So if you catch someone sleeping like that, you can actually get the entire 3-batter minimum with all 3 guys worse against lefties. So that's really strong. In general, people are just running more lefties in their lineup anyway, and people are running more switch hitters too, which makes it easier to throw a lefty, I guess, if it doesn't really matter what side they're hitting from. Anyway, so if you see the lefties there, we're adding Aaron Loop as our 4th lefty, and he's actually replacing Clay Holmes, who's a righty. So if you get confused by that, that's the reason why. But for our righties, we're keeping Dibble Treinen. Raisel Iglesias replaces Alex Reyes, and then Brusdar Gratterall for our 4th righty. And then our lefties are Aaron Loop, Andrew Miller, Josh Hader, and Tyler Matzik. This is the exact same slide, but with the yellow removed. I do this for you guys so you can have a bit easier time having a slide that you can screenshot if you're so inclined, if you'd like to. So hopefully that helps you guys out. That's my mini budget squad team there. Obviously all the cards are amazing. And let's move on to the most fun slide, which is the best team possible if you had access to every single card in the game. So sorry if the text is a little small, but everyone in the lineup is new except for Mantle. So leading off, we got Mike Trout in center field or left field. This depends on your parallel status with Mickey Mantle. So Mickey Mantle actually earns a diamond shield at center field when he hits parallel 3. So before parallel 3, you want to play Mickey in left and Trout in center. And then after Mickey is parallel 3 or higher, you want to play Mickey in center and Trout in left. Hope that makes sense. Trout's leading off playing center or left. Mickey's hitting second, playing center or left. And then third, we got Griffey in right, replacing Babe Ruth. Fourth is Tatis at shortstop. Then we got Babe Ruth at first base. Trey Turner at second, Crawford at third, and Fox running it out at catcher. On the bench, we're technically running 3 righties as well. But 2 of them are switch hitters, which gives us a little bit more flexibility, makes our opponent's bullpen decisions a little bit more difficult. So our only pure righty is Kike Hernandez. We already talked about why he's so good on the bench. But our other technical righties are Chipper Jones and Ketel Marte. These are switch hitters who are better against lefties. So they're technically righties off the bench. But again, the switch hitting adds a better dynamic there. Really strong bench pieces there. Our left-handed outfielder is Juan Soto. Must have bench bat if he's not starting. Insane hitter with his quirks and attributes and all that considered. And then infielder lefty is Corey Seager. The rotation hasn't changed at all, like I said when I was talking about it on the starting pitcher slide. So best rotation in the game, in my opinion, is still Ohtani, Verlander, Kluber, Ryan, and Arrieta. As I say in every tier list, the strength of Ohtani is in his bat. So if you just can't maximize his at-bats, you don't feel like you can hit well with him, or you feel like the pitching, he's not a good pitcher and it's not really worth it for you, then go ahead and ditch Ohtani. And if you were to do so, the next man up in the God Squad rotation would be deGrom, which is not a surprise. Moving on to the bullpen, Again, 4 righties, 4 lefties. So in terms of lefties, we have Aaron Loop replacing Blake Trinan. But anyway, for the righties, we've got 99 Goose, 95 Dibble, one of either Mariano or Kenley, and then we have Raisel Iglesias as our 4th righty, replacing Eric Gagne. For our lefties, we got Chapman, Loop, Billy Wagner, and Andrew Miller. Here is the Ultimate God Squad lineup, if you want to take a screenshot of it. So that lineup is maybe the best in-game lineup of any MLB The Show Diamond Dynasty I've played. Like, every single card's nuts. But yeah, lots of fun to have teams this good. And then finally, rounding out the video, this is the best team possible if you never spent a single stub on any player on your team. So obviously, if you play the game, you're going to have stubs. So work from this slide up on where you want to spend your stubs. But even still, if you just ran this squad out there, it's still so good. And the funny thing about this slide is it's actually the exact same lineup as the first slide, except for catcher. I might have said that earlier, but catcher's the only difference. So if you guys are looking at that budget squad, that's about as good as it gets, because 7 out of 8 of those guys are free from Team Affinity. I don't include Schwarber or like Player of the Month Lightning cards on this slide, because technically you have to lock in Tops Now cards to get them, and technically those cards have stub value, so that's why they're not on here, but use your own discretion. Anyway, the only difference here is Salvador Perez at catcher. So our lineup is Mickey in center leading off. Then we got Tatis at shortstop. Then Soto in right field. Kittel at second base. Freddie Freeman at first. Salvador Perez at catcher. Brandon Crawford at third base. And Brian Reynolds in left field. On the bench, we are running Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez. Again, the positional flexibility really strong there as righties. Free cards. And then we got our big thumper, Frank Thomas, from the right side as well. Our infielder lefty is Rafael Devers, and our outfielder lefty is Kyle Tucker. In the rotation, we got 4 guys staying from last time, those being DeGrom, Webb, Hernandez, and Valenzuela. And then the 5th guy is Zach Wheeler, replacing Lance McCullers Jr. In the bullpen, we got Raisel Iglesias replacing Wade Davis. And then we're sticking with Gratterall, Duvall, and Reyes. And from the left side, we're sticking with Matzik, Hader, and Britton, and we're bringing in our 4th lefty in Gregory Soto, replacing our 5th righty in Clay Holmes. So that is it for the final tier list for MLB The Show 21. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it helped you make some decisions with all the crazy cards we have in the game now. And again, just want to take the opportunity at the end of this video to just thank you guys for the support you show me all the time. It means a lot to me for you guys to be here. Don't want to get too sappy, but it was an amazing year for me, both in real life and on YouTube. I'd say even more so in real life, which is awesome, obviously. And I just really appreciate you guys being here and supporting me. Looking forward to MLB The Show 22 a lot. I say it every year, but I mean it every year. We're going to tackle it hard when it comes out. Excited to get some news maybe about a cover athlete and or release date soon. But anyway, I hope this tier list holds you guys over. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys have a great new year and that 2022 is everything you guys are hoping for. That being said, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Appreciate you guys watching. Take care. And until next time, we'll see you later.